Hey everyone, this is Denise and Brandy with Eternally Fit. Um, so we have taken a little bit of time off in between our last episode that we're going to be posting here soon, but we started Zechariah 1 through 3, I think when school was still in session, maybe.
Yeah,
Or
but we
like,
did a couple videos after that, and then now we're going back to Zechariah.
yes. So Brandy took a trip out to visit her family. I'm so glad you got to have that time with them. Um,
Yes.
so now we're back with today. We're going to be going over chapters 4, 5, and 6 of Zechariah. Um, I just want to preface with if you read this on your own and you're confused, don't feel bad because it's a very deep book and it's so many visions that are really hard to put together. So we have tried to do
Ex-
our best.
Extremely hard. He
Yeah.
has, Zechariah has a lot of prophecy. Yeah, a lot of just hidden messages. It's just confusing. And, we do dive in and look at videos from other people, and they can relate it because they've studied it for so long to like the old portions, other portions of the Bible to help understand. But yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
So.
So we're going to do our best here. And so chapter 4 starts with a vision with olive trees, and they're pouring oil into bowls that fed into 7 lamps. And those 7 lamps each had 7 wicks. So, what this is implying, or I guess this vision is showing us, is that this is the word of the Lord to, and this name is so interesting, Zerubbabel.
Good job.
um, so basically, the word is not by strength of might, but by God's Spirit. So he is telling Zerubbabel, I'm going to give you this really hard task, but you're going to do it through my strength, not by your works or your own strength. I'm going to be there with you, and I'm going to make it happen. So just to understand a little bit about who is Zerubbabel, he's if you look back in the book of Haggai, you'll find that he was the governor of Judah.
Huh.
Yeah, and so Haggai and Zechariah were prophets at the same time, and they were both prophesying to Zerubbabel. Well, what were they prophesying about? They were encouraging him to build the temple. So, to kind of go back, the first temple was Solomon's temple during his reign. And so, Zerubbabel, that was destroyed by the Babylonians. Is that correct? Do you know, Brandy?
Oh, I don't know. I don't want to say
I,
yes or no because I would have to
yeah,
verify.
I'm not 100%. So, we'll have to double check on that. But it was destroyed. And so, the Lord wanted Zerubbabel to start this second temple. So, obviously with the help of God's Spirit. And it was going to be much, much smaller than Solomon's temple and less majestic.
So this is
Solomon's
the
temple
second
was,
temple.
sorry?
This is the second temple.
Yes. So Solomon's was huge and just, I think, like gold and silver, just
Yep.
very majestic. And so it took Zerubbabel 2 years to build just the foundation. And visitors came to see it and they were like, what is this? This is not majestic at all. It's so small. And they were just not very impressed. But he was told the Lord will rejoice in it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be the same grandeur as Solomon's.
And I think
So,
that should go to, this day and age. God doesn't need something extravagant. He doesn't need a huge temple, a huge church that's fancy, because that's more outward showing versus he
yeah.
wants your heart. He wants you.
And that ties to the Bible verse you sent earlier from
Oh, yeah.
Isaiah
Yeah.
about outward, show. So,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, he just wants the genuine righteousness of inside your hearts.
Yep.
um, so the two olive trees who are giving the word of the Lord, which is the oil, to Zerubbabel from Haggai and Zechariah, they are the two anointed ones. And so to tie this to Revelation, so in Revelation 11:3-4, it mentions that the olive trees and it mentions the olive trees and the lampstands, and it ties them to the two witnesses who will be the prophets in the end times. So there will be two prophets who come back to witness, and there are different ideas on who these prophets could be. Like, nobody really knows. It doesn't give you the exact names, but people say maybe Elijah, or maybe,
I've
who
heard
knows.
that, but I don't
So
think we'll know. Do you want
no,
me to
we
read?
don't.
Do you want me to read that?
Sure, yeah.
So she was saying Revelation 11:3-4. So it says, "And I will appoint my two witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. They are the two olive trees, and the two lampstands, and they stand before the Lord of the earth."
Yeah,
So,
pretty cool. Um, And then just a little more background on the second temple that I thought was really interesting. So I think I mentioned Zerubbabel took 2 years to rebuild the foundation of the temple. And then construction was delayed because there were some Samaritan settlers who came in, and as a result of there was some hostility with that. As a result of that, the temple construction was halted because the funds or the support for the project was taken away, withdrawn. So it ended up taking, let's see, so for 17 years the temple sat unfinished. Isn't that crazy?
mhm.
Um, and then
It was
okay, so
finished in
then
516 BC. Is that
wow.
what you got?
Yep, that's right. So 4 years after they resumed rebuilding the temple, it took 4 years, and it was completed in 516 BC. And so a lot of the time, the first temple is referred to as Solomon's temple, but the second temple, it's usually referred to as like the second temple. And I think it was King Herod. Yeah, King Herod ruled in that temple. And then I don't think we want to dig too far into the third temple, but the third temple is mentioned in the book of Revelation.
Well,
And
so I love that you said that because I was listening today and reading some stuff, and I was actually kind of going over chapter 7. I'm jumping ahead, but it said
mhm,
every time his people are gathered back together, because in Zechariah they were gathered back together,
mhm.
not like nowadays, but a temple was built. So they were
Wow.
gathered together. The first one, they were gathered, it was built. Second time in Zechariah, they were gathered together, it was built. The third time, okay, gathered together, they were gathered together in 1948. And I know Denise and I are itching to have a podcast on just them becoming a nation again, Israel becoming a nation again.
Mhm.
So the third temple is possibly going to be built anytime. They've got so many things set in place. Um, so I think it's very, very interesting. And then to go back to your point, I was just reading the two anointed ones in Revelation. They think it also could be Joshua and Zerubbabel.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but they are to
Zerubbabel
prop
or Zechariah?
Zerubbabel,
Oh,
Joshua,
wow. Okay.
but I don't, we don't know that.
Yeah.
They just to kind of guessing that, but these two witnesses are to prophesy in the tribulation. So
Yes.
hopefully, sometime soon we'll get into the rapture and tribulation, and hopefully soon.
Yeah, I would like to. I think
Okay,
this
sorry.
might lead us into that. So, yeah.
Go ahead.
So that's what I have for chapter 4.
Okay, I'll do chapter 5. It was a pretty short chapter. But as you're reading this, it was super confusing just reading it on my own. I thought, what in the world? So, Zechariah is seeing visions of like a flying scroll. And then he also sees a vision of a basket and a woman in a basket. So I just thought, what in the world is this talking about? So the flying scroll. So back in the day, they did not have books. So each like as this book of Zechariah, it was its own separate book. Each of
Okay.
these books were their own separate. So the scroll actually means a book. So he sees this flying book, and the measurements it has here, where was it? 20 cubits by 10. So that actually equals 30 feet by 15 feet. And ironically, these are the exact same measurements as the holy room. Do you remember in the the other parts of the Old Testament where it had the um, holy room and then the holy of holy rooms, where
Okay.
the only holiest of holy priests could go into this room?
Right.
Anyways, just interesting. It was the same
Hmm.
measurements as that.
Yeah.
So he's seeing this scroll, this book pass by, and so this book is actually the judgment, from what I'm gathering, the judgment coming upon us, because it's sin. Um, so that was the first vision, and I'd still like to delve into that a little bit more, but it was just wow. It was very, very different.
Hmm.
So the second vision is a woman in a basket. So what in the world does that mean? Um, the woman in Revelation represents sin. Um, she is considered to be the one world church, which I'm sure you guys have seen, and Denise, you've seen nowadays, is there's a lot of churches trying to combine and say that their visions or their beliefs are all the same. I know there's a certain religion in particular says everybody's going to heaven. So they just believe
Yeah.
everybody. Well, no.
And you mean outside of Christianity, like Islamic and yeah,
Yeah. So they're trying to say that
yeah.
we all believe the same, which I believe in just the Bible.
Right.
I am not considered a religion for me. I'm a born again Christian. I believe in the Bible. So anytime I have a pastor or anything that says something, I want to double check it. I'm not saying I do every time, but
From the
okay.
Bible.
So then this woman, she represents sin, and she's in a basket. Don't understand the whole basket portion. So he takes the basket away. So, and he puts this lead lid back on the woman to trap her back in, because have you heard of like the Whore of Babylon,
Mm.
representing just sin?
Okay.
And so he puts this lid back on in Zechariah in this vision because it's not time. It's not time. And I'm wondering if it has something to do with the tribulation.
That
Then
makes
she will be
sense.
released.
Mm.
Um,
Like, as in, God will pull the restrainer away and the sin can,
and the restrainer is in my belief is his church,
the
his
church.
Christians,
Christians
and
who believe
his
in
body.
Jesus.
Yep, those that believe wholeheartedly in Christ coming on this earth and dying for their sins.
Hmm.
Um, so then verse 9, and it says, "Then I looked up, and there before me were two women with the wind in their wings. They had wings like those of a stork, and they lifted up the basket between heaven and earth." And I'm thinking that is just when he decides, no, now's not the time. Um, but the word stork, it means kindness or mercy.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So I'm wondering if that's when Jesus comes, because his kindness and his mercy he's given us.
That's a really good, interesting point right there. I didn't think to look up what stork actually means.
I didn't either. And that's, have you ever, the stork bringing the baby and
Right, right.
in a
Huh.
basket, and how ironic it's in a basket. Usually the thing that they bring babies in a
Wonder,
basket.
yeah.
I don't
Wonder if that
know.
has some kind of weird tie to the Bible. Hmm.
So he in Zechariah's day, he has not let his sin out. It's not time until Revelation, the whore of Babylon. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yep. Makes sense.
and I think that's all I got. It was a very short chapter, but man, it was full of I don't know.
Yeah, these are these are interesting.
Yeah,
See, if I ever got a vision, I'd be like, "What? How do I?" I
I
would.
just had
I
a
don't
weird
know.
dream. Yeah,
I would really need God's help to figure out what that means.
yeah.
Uh, okay. Anything else on chapter 5?
Uh, the Babylon that he's talking about. Um, the person I was listening to believes it's in uh, what's nowadays Iran,
Okay.
between the Tigris and Euphrates, is where he thinks Babylon will be.
Okay. And
So
just to kind of give them a little background on what Babylon represents is just my understanding is, God's people went there. They had intentions to, well, they just couldn't, like,
they
they
were
were
trying to
never
build
satisfied, right? They had
they
to
were
do
trying to
better. And
build the Tower of Babylon to
building the
reach.
tower, they had to be the best, and they just let material things go to
I think they wanted to
her.
be God. They
Mm.
were trying to build the tower up, and he said nope, and he dispersed them with different languages. That's why it's Babel.
So they couldn't, yeah, babies
But
babble.
yep,
So they couldn't, yeah, communicate, and they never did get to finish the tower, right? Is that
right.
correct? Yeah. So that usually when you see Babylon, it represents sin and just, yeah. So, okay. So anything else on that?
Nope.
Okay. So chapter 6, it entails a couple of visions as well. The first one is 4 chariots. So these 4 chariots represent 4 spirits of heaven, or like angelic beings who are going out into the world, and they represent, usually chariots represent like power and strength. Um, and a lot of times in scripture, they are like war chariots. And so the belief is that these chariots are representing God's judgment. Um, that's really all that I have on that first section. Do you have anything, Brandy? I know you kind of studied this chapter as
So
well.
this is the eighth vision, is the 4 chariots, and Zechariah is prophesying to the Jews in Babylon at this time. 4 chariots represent the tribulation period. Um, this was just an interesting tidbit. Chariot, the word chariot means macabre in Israel's language, and Israel's fighting tanks, they're called macabre.
Oh,
So
wow. Hmm.
yeah, so I took away that these are vehicles of war.
Hmm.
Um, the chariots demonstrate the judgments of God.
Okay. Yep. That's what I have on that. Then Vision 2, it's titled the Symbolic Crown. So Zechariah is told to get silver and gold from the exiles who came from Babylon. They had, great wealth and had all these materials. So he made a crown for Joshua, who is the high priest. But this is pretty crazy because priests were never crowned back in that time. So and priests and kings, so king would typically be crowned. Priests and kings typically would bicker about what is right and wrong back in those times because they both thought they were right. They wanted,
Mm-hmm.
the priests wanted to follow God's law, of course. So for Joshua to be crowned, it's just very symbolic and foreshadowing that Jesus is going to come as our priest and our king,
Can
and
I
he will be
can I
crowned.
interrupt you real quick? I know I was supposed to be talking,
Yeah.
no, but I just found this was very interesting. So, um, the person I was listening to, he has studied Hebrew, and he said Joshua in Hebrew actually is Jesus. in Hebrew. So
Oh,
Joshua is the same
wow.
name.
Huh.
But that's what he said. So
Well,
this is something to verify. So then when you were talking
okay.
about the being crowned, he is a king and he's our ultimate priest. He is both.
Right.
Okay,
And that's
sorry.
pretty, that's interesting. I'm glad you said that because something I was reading said, a lot of people may have thought, why wouldn't Zerubbabel have been crowned as, whatever, maybe, I don't know, he wasn't a priest, but he was, why wouldn't it have been like a civil leader like Zerubbabel? And it said, no, it had to be Joshua. And that makes sense because he was coming from the line of David, who was,
Mhm.
Jesus came from that line too.
Yeah, that was
That makes,
awesome
oh,
point
that's
that you
cool.
tied it together right there.
I love that. That's really cool. So, uh, let's see. And then there's a part that I feel like I need to read a little bit to you. It's about, how in John, if you guys remember back in chapter 15, Jesus said, um, I'm the vine, you're the branches. And so in this, it's talking about the prophecy of the branch, who is both the king and the priest. So it's tying back to, Jesus. Maybe, did I say that right? Let me see here. I am the vine, you are the branches. Yes, that's right. So the branch is associated with fruitfulness and life. And it's just interesting how it ties back to, John, where Jesus is saying, you are the branches. And so he's saying the main point is people from the far land will come and build the Lord's temple. And so the Lord's temple, it says the branch will rebuild the temple, which are the people. So this is not the same temple Zerubbabel worked on, but this is the temple of God's people. So, we
Hmm.
have, obviously we are God's temple, but Zerubbabel was working on the second temple, the physical temple.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's all I
It's
have.
all so interesting. Once we started diving into it more, I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it really is. It's once once you can tie it together and like even bring other books into it to explain it, it helps a lot because it's really very confusing otherwise. But
Yeah, I
okay,
think we're done. Hopefully, you guys
yeah,
continue following along with us. We're going to do chapters 7, 8, and 9
yeah,
next.
yep,
Yeah,
okay.
so let us know
Bye.
if you guys have any
Yeah, let us know
questions.
what you think. Bye.